Good afternoon, everyone. This is Marcia Metzger with Parents on the Level, and I am here with Diane Stover with Protect Ohio Children, and we are in for our third session on the CASEL Doctrine. We're going to be talking about the company CASEL, and we're going to jump right in, and I'm going to speed read through a few of the initial slides because we're just going to kind of go over a few of them from last week just to get us warmed back up. So let's start. Remember, when you see this particular logo, that represents your family worldview. Yes, that is the Parents on the Level logo, and this is where worldview meets education. So your family worldview is very important to you, I'm sure, as it is to many. So let's just take a peek at how this is going to work out. This also includes your sacred beliefs. And remember, they're being challenged every day by CASEL. And you see that background of your family worldview fading in the background. If you don't speak about your family worldview to your children, CASEL will take that over. So just you have to understand that's what's happening with social and emotional learning. Remember that the original name for CASEL, the acronym, the A stood for advancement, not academics. So we're looking at the integrity of a company here. Actually, that's what we're doing in all of these webinars. The integrity of these companies. Do you really want companies that have the integrity of making money and transforming your child's thoughts, values, attitudes, behaviors, beliefs? Is that something that you want to hand over to the American school system? We have a lot of decisions to make today as parents and grandparents and citizens in our country. So look at the integrity of each of these companies, because I think that you know already from watching the first two sessions that this company does not have the integrity that most parents would desire. Remember, they are using this lens of equity in order to filter every single subject in the school. And also, their goal is to produce a global citizen, not an American citizen, a global citizen. And not only a global citizen, but a fully transformed citizen. I want to introduce you to an example of a fully transformed student.
I'm a student at Chapin High School in my senior year, and I have attended schools in the Chapin cluster since kindergarten. This is the first District 5 board meeting I have attended, though I did watch the public participation portion of the meeting that took place on January 8th. I was inspired to come and speak today by my English teachers. In my high school years, I have come to know most of the teachers in the department and found that they are a brilliant and kind group of people who truly do act in the interest of every student. I hold the utmost respect for them, and they have taught me so much in academics, extracurriculars, and lifelong ethics. I am incapable of fully understanding the stress and responsibility felt by teachers, parents, and the members of this board. I have no years of experience being an educator. I have no college degree. I am not a parent. I am barely even an adult. I am just a high school student. I am here to make a point about the dangerous consequences of book banning in public education, but I first want to share some of my background so that you may get an idea of why this is so important to me. I'm fortunate to have both my parents present and involved in my everyday life. They support me, care for me, and I live a comfortable life. I love both of my parents dearly, but tonight I would like to focus on my father and the concomitantly detrimental effect he has had on my life. He is a conservative, a Republican, and a Christian. For as long as I can remember, he has instilled his political and religious values in me. As a child who unquestioningly admired her father, I took him at his word, and his one-sided bigoted beliefs became ingrained in my identity. When the topic of the 2016 presidential election arose at the fourth grade lunch table, I would recite the arguments my father made in favor of Trump. I ignorantly endorsed a man who would have me suffer and even die in the name of political agendas. At 10 years old, I had no one exposing me to diverse political perspectives. One might argue that a fourth grade classroom is not the place for political discussions, and if one is to arise, the teacher should extricate themselves from the situation and dismiss the topic entirely. If the classroom is not the place for such discussions, then where? The home? My parents failed me in that area of education, and I can assure you that mine were not the only ones. If fourth grade students are old enough to hold conversations about politics and current events themselves, then they are old enough to hear debates that represent both sides and incorporate a variety of viewpoints. I have since needed to reconsider where I stand. When the Democrats, who had previously been demonized, held in unjustifiable condemnation and immediately dismissed, actually aligned with my own morals and reasoning more than Republicans, I found myself at a crossroads. I could either continue in my father's doctrine that required me to follow blindly and ignore irrefutable irrefutable truths and the principles of democracy or to pursue my own knowledge and form my own opinions. This I could not do without the support of my teachers. They have encouraged me to conduct my own research about the politicians from both parties who have the power to dictate my life. They did this without interjecting their own opinions or political affiliations. They have emboldened me to form my own opinions and supported me unconditionally. The English department has changed my life for the better. They are, in my humble opinion, the most qualified people in this room to determine which books are useful and appropriate for classrooms. They are experts in how to best use these books, these tools, to provide students with a diverse education with which to become well-informed, free-thinking citizens. Thank you.
Well, everyone, I think if you look at this, you understand exactly what I'm talking about when you hear the word fully transformed students. This daughter of this family, as she comes to this school board meeting, I believe that she has a perception that has been manipulated, and perception is perception. It doesn't mean it's truth. I can break down so many of the things that this little girl has said in her testimony here, and I'm sure it took great courage for her to do that. And there were several other students that have spoken at this meeting as well. And so in this school, they're having a war about banned books, which we all know that books are not banned, they're restricted in schools if they're found to have information in them that is unsuitable or sexually graphic. That's what's going on in this Lexington, South Carolina school system here. So if you're interested in getting into that, there's the web address for it, the YouTube account for it. You see what I'm talking about, though, when you have teachers using English and language arts in order to deliver concepts, ideas, political information to students. These can come through a host of different companies, Newsella, Common Lit 360. There's a lot of different companies that bring news articles into schools to use for English and language arts. And also, this is a direct this is a totally direct hit from social and emotional learning. There's just no doubt about it. So what I want to do is just have you understand that full transformation is the goal for social and emotional learning. Interventions are what takes place from social and emotional learning platforms, whether it's a standalone company that's teaching only SEL, or whether SEL has been integrated into their English language arts, their math, their social studies, whatever it is. All right. So that's one of the things that we've talked about. All right. The next thing to understand how the delivery of data, we're going to really be, I want you to just think data all the way through this program today. How the data from these students produces that fully transformed student it's so important for you to understand. One of the major ways is through the American School Counselors Association. We call it ASCA. And you will find them at schoolcounselor.org. And they are the promoters of all things woke, DEI, and other Marxist concepts. I normally don't give a derogatory definition like that of a company or of a group of people or anything, but there are videos that have since been firewalled to where the general public can't get to them anymore, but they're around. You can find them. These particular people that they're teaching the school counselors to do the gender support plans. They teach them about diversity, equity, and inclusion. They teach them about the Title IX situations, as you will hear here. Now, one of the things that you'll notice is that the topic that I used last session was transgenderism. I'm going to use it again today because it is at the top of the list, the most egregious, where parents can actually lose their child physically from their home. And you'll see some video proof of that, testimony of that in this session as well. So anyway, what you've got to understand is we now have said goodbye to guidance counselors, and we now have mental health counselors in our schools. Many states have developed laws and legislation where schools are being just flooded with funding from state funds to hire more social workers and counselors. Georgia has gone so far as to hire and put out a plea for people to take to major in these fields, and that they will even pay their tuition in order to come into the schools and become social workers and guidance counselors. Also, I know like in Georgia, we've had where Governor Kemp signed on another, I think 110 more school-based healthcare clinics. All of these come together and develop data, and there's probably even more since I last heard that have been, assigned the clinics and stuff. They're across the nation. You need to look for your own self in your own state. How many school-based healthcare clinics do we have? How many are heading our way? Look in your local school, do an open record request and ask them if there's one headed to your school system. Everyone needs to know, because this is one of the ways that this is being cultivated and cemented in our school system. The ASCA mental health counselors, I got to thinking about it. Could this possibly be their to-do list? All right, let's go over this really quick. Hang on just a second. Can you hear me now? I'm sorry. All right. Survey all students, their likes, dislikes, anything like that. Any problems with their parents, get that data. Introduce diverse and controversial topics and measure responses to customize lessons, and be sure to use the CASEL 5. Schedule those intervention sessions, counselors. Make sure of that identity. Do they know who they really are? Surveil their text messages and social media because, suicide. Remember, especially for trans kids. Guys, there are actually software programs in the schools that surveil the texts and the social media of the students. Gaggle is one of them. There's several of them. Number 5, recommend a trusted adult to confide in. Number 6, remind kids school is their family and their safe space. 7, assure them that what they discuss in the counselor's office stays in the counselor's office because they have rights. That might sound a little, judgy or whatever you want to call it on my part, but I can take you to documents, pictures, and realities that represent every one of those things on that to-do list. So I want to introduce you once again to our friends at Courage is a Habit. They recorded the following slide that I have here before the information was firewalled from the public, as I spoke about just a second ago. Their training sessions, conferences, all of those have been firewalled from us. And so you think about, we pay for this information and our tax dollars, once again, are being used against us. And this is just one of many of these videos. This is an audio, actually. So see courageisahabit.org for more information. So let's listen to this real quick and let's just see what you think from here. It's a little bit quiet at first, so just read the slides here.
Thank you. And we do have a few more minutes to answer a few more questions. The next question, great. What should we do when a student asks to be called by an affirmed name, but their parent insists that they be called by their given name?
Yeah, this is definitely not fun. I will admit this is the most unfun part of being supportive, caring, loving school counselors, because the parents will be mad and it's not fun, and it takes thick skin, unfortunately. And hopefully you have support of your administrators, but if you don't, it can feel very, very lonesome. So if you don't have support of your administrators, find another school counselor. I mean, call me if you need to. Seriously, call me, email me. Find somebody who can support you. And that could either be one of the advocates from GLAD, the legal advocates that I told you worked on my policy with me, or it can be someone from your state school counseling association or from your state LGBTQ organization. But it's just important that I always stress, I understand you don't support this, but it is our job to support your kid in school. Like, that is point blank our job. Your job is to support them at home. It's our job when they're with us for those 7 or 8 hours. We have to legally make school a safe space. And if your student, if your child, parent, if your child is telling us, I feel safe in school, to feel safe in school, I need you to call me this name. We have to do that. It's best practice. It's also, I mean, a student can file a Title IX discrimination thing. I mean, that is a thing. Young kids probably don't know they can do that, but I mean, teenagers definitely are aware that Title IX exists, and they can file a Title IX discrimination complaint against you. And that is not fun. And it involves an investigation from a third party. I mean, every district, I believe, has a Title IX coordinator that you can take any sort of discrimination complaints. I mean, a sex discrimination complaint, a race discrimination complaint. Kids can do that. And we don't want to go down that route. It's not fun at all. But I just think it's very important to listen to the parent. It's easy to get frustrated with them. Absolutely, I get that. But just to say, parent, I really appreciate this conversation. I'm glad you're talking to me about it. But I need you to know that your child has asked me to do this, and we are going to do that. And I mean, I even had a parent then try to talk to my principal about it. And my principal was like, here's the policy. It says, I mean, if you do have a policy, it does back you up a little bit, other than just, I'm a school counselor who does best practices and I care about your kid. I mean, if you have a policy that can help you. But if not, it's just, thank you for talking to me. I really want to keep talking to you about this, but it's our job to keep your kids safe. And this is what they're asking us to do so they can feel safe with us. And that's what we are going to honor.
I don't know about you, but if I were a parent and I had some little counselor get on the phone with me like that, I would immediately remove my child from that school. And honestly, that is one of the best case scenarios if you have a child leaning toward transgenderism. And by the time you get through the rest of this session, you'll understand where we are as a country right now and where we are in the American school system. You heard this little girl voicing all of this information about Title IX and all of that. And, you know, the Title IX laws actually are for girls to be protected in sports and not to be harassed sexually at school. There are a lot of things that Title IX covers. Now, President Biden and his staff, they have tried to legislate from the Federal Register in this. You can go in the Federal Register and you can find the information about Title IX, and they are trying to go full throttle with this month. So there is a great deal of information that every parent needs to learn about Title IX. They need to know that they can stand against it. Some schools are following an interpretation of Title IX law to expand it to where students have to use pronouns and where children have rights to do what they want to with their medical care, with their health care, and that they can make these decisions on their own if they want to transgender. And that is why I'm showing the data to you today, especially with that highlighted, because we are in a time today that I never thought we'd ever see in this country. So remember, last month we did the transgender topic, and we took it through these different steps. And remember, these CASEL 5 competencies begin with an introductory phase, and they go through to a conversion, replacing of values, to application, to transformation. This is intentional, and it's been planned for quite some time. Understand that every single topic, it keeps going through these CASEL 5 competencies, and the data is collected and tested to see if these students are tracking and if they are transforming. Data and everything is being used in such a way today, it's going to floor you to see how much they're collecting on our students. So first off, let's just talk about it being harvested in the first place. I think I've touched on it a little bit, And this is a corny little saying that a lot of us have seen in even kindergarten classrooms. Your mind is a garden. Your thoughts are the seeds. You can go grow flowers or you can grow weeds. Children are manipulated. They're minors. That is the reason why this is so egregious to each and every one of us when we see that these students are being led down these paths and that this little girl believes that her father is a bigot, and that this little girl in this video earlier at the beginning of this webinar believes that even a president is a dictator. And she even talked about how all of these rules dictate her life and all of this. She has so much misinformation. And that is the very thing that they are teaching her that we're providing is misinformation. It is gaslighting to the nth degree. So that's pretty much what we're looking at. So consider what's going into your child's mind. Let's just look at a few of these things. What is being sown into their mind? Let's look at these weeds. There are endless genders. Many feel suicide is the only way out. And as long as she says yes, you're good to go. You can pause your puberty to know for sure. You may be trapped in the wrong body. Your parents don't necessarily have to know. It's your body. Have sex when you're ready. I can give you lessons that go with each and every one of these. Consent today is not being taught in a way that requires legal consent. It's not taught in a way that teaches age of consent. They're not teaching parental consent. They are teaching how to get consent for the green light to go off where kids can do whatever they want sexually. And once they're sexualized, once they're going down that trail, it is easy to derail them from learning what they are meant to learn, which is academics. So are you going to be able to weed out the adverse concepts before they become your child's North Star? I've even seen the lessons that have to do with Eastern mysticism, and that's what they would call it, their North Star. A lot of the same information that you would find in a basic yoga program that would be in conflict with a Christian worldview or any other worldview. So there's a lot of that. So, but what they're farming for, again, this is such a broad topic. It covers so many things, but they're looking for whatever they can stand on in the heart and mind of your child. Their experiences that are adverse, they're fertilized and cultivated, even cultivated, developed further in the American school system. And then that data is harvested, and it's harvested along with PBIS and SEL data. The MTSS Combine Harvester is on the move. So you're like, what are all these acronyms? Remember, I told you that before, that's part of the design. When you go into a school, you get hit with all of these acronyms. You can count several of them right here on the screen. ACEs, MTSS, PBIS, SEL, all of these have to do with the classifications of interventions. Interventions are one-on-one work with your student and either a counselor or a teacher. Okay, so think of that and how that system is leading your child. So MTSS has been in the schools for several years. RTI and PBIS, all of these have been. So let's just take a little peek, because we could get bogged down in this, and probably they wish that we would. But I'm just letting you know that these are systems that they use for both the behavior and academic issues and interventions for students, okay? So pretty much when you think RTI, response to intervention, think of those as the academic interventions. That's what most parents think, that's all that should exist. You know, if my kid's not doing good in math, they need tutoring in math. Okay, I would have been one of those tier 2 or 3 in algebra or trig or something like that. Okay, but the thing is, when you're looking at positive behavior interventions and supports, PBIS, and you're looking at how you're going to be classified in a tier 1, 2, or 3 situation, every single student is in tier 1. You're at least in tier 1. All students are in this pyramid. So what does this mean? This means your child is subjected to mental health counseling, It means that your child has data observed on them, and that data is entered into a longitudinal database. It's their permanent record. You need to know what's in it. And if I were a parent today, I would go to the school and find out what I had to do to get it. And you need to read your educational laws to make sure that what they're telling you is correct and lawful. That is where we are today when it comes to data, okay? So there's a lot of different things, and schools will put their own twist on this. All schools want to be original. They'll want to use their own little charts, their own little fonts, and they'll want to make their own little word and their world and their own little meanings for all of these things as well. So make sure that you get this information from your counselor and tell me, and just say, tell me how this MTSS stuff works. And then, you know, once this is posted, compare it to what we've spoke to here as well. So it's basically the main thing that I see it doing too is over the years, it has made this so common, like, what's the big deal? So we would be ready to receive social and emotional learning, where that framework would definitely be what would usher in these transformative lessons that they're really contradictory to American freedom. All right, so all public school students, like I said, they're enrolled in mental health interventions. Most students are level 1. And now that CASEL has accomplished their goals to advance SEL, MTSS mental health efforts are on full throttle to analyze student behaviors. Most parents are unaware, and get this, y'all, Medicaid recipients may even have a diagnostic submission for payment. These school-based healthcare clinics, once those things are in full engagement in the school district, and if the child is a Medicaid recipient, they may even be able to get paid for SEL programming. So there's lots of money to make in the SEL field, not just by the publishers, not just by the information technology, ed tech people, not just by the school system itself, but also the American taxpayer is getting hit again through Medicaid in order to pay for this unknown, unordered, unauthorized by parents mental health programming. So this comes from one of the forms that I found, and I've got the link for you to look this up later on. It's a fascinating read. Let me just read this one part. I put in bracket, the mental health impaired and substance abuse disorder SUD students. These guidelines identified PBIS, MTSS, and RTI using these techniques to identify children, collect data on child behavioral disabilities, use interventions, and bill Medicaid for mental health disorders through reimbursements by identifying children through social and emotional learning and early and periodic screening, diagnostic, and treatment as free care services. PBIS and MTSS are currently being administered in every classroom of America. This read it's very important for everybody to look into this, follow all the links throughout, and understand this is how our tax dollars are being used, and this is how our children are being possibly manipulated and possibly, I mean, I can't imagine being classified as disabled because my thinking doesn't go in alignment with someone that wants me to think and receive and accept something that's biologically impossible, like gender identity ideology. So here we are. Parents, demand your child's mental health records by open record request. Now, you can go in there and get them without the open record request too, but the official record by email, it might serve you well in the event that you ever have to use any kind of a court. Also, place a parental notification document on file with your school regarding your desires regarding data. Notify them what you want, what you can and can't have and do. They all need to know these things. So there honestly is no way to opt your child out of the overall systematic transformation of the American school system. The sheer influence of it is enough to convert your child. So make plans to homeschool because this is not changing anytime soon. That took me some nerve to tell you on screen, because who wants to be told that they have to change their way of life? But folks, I'm going to tell you, when you've got data that is being driven this hard that could be used against you, it is time to pause and pull your child to make sure that you know where things stand in your school. Ask them if these things are true. Find out for yourself. All right. Here's another thing I wanted to just really touch base with you really quick as well. SEL publishers, they're projected to make $3.8 billion by 2025. It's probably more than that. This is market data forecast. I don't think that's been updated anytime recently. It's probably more than that now. And guys, with over a compounded annual growth rate of 25%. So remember, these people are highly motivated to continue down these paths with data. Data means money. All of those adverse childhood experiences, anywhere that it could be stood on. Now, like I said, not everyone that teaches or administrates in a school understands what's taking place. Not all of them are down for this. But I will tell you one thing, there are people in each school system that are down for it, and it's just a matter of time. If this Title IX takes hold, like the Biden administration is going to try to make it take hold, and if for some reason things don't change politically for America, things don't get reined back in, this is just something you need to know ahead of time and plan for. This is headed in a place where kids, and especially kids with a worldview of Christianity, it's not safe there anymore, folks. And the superintendents will be like, there's money for nothing here. And they will keep growing and going, taking that money to build that school system out. You know, look at this. Hillsdale and Primus, their article, they have classified this growth in the public school system between 2000 and 2019. And all this comes from the U.S. Department of Education. Our school district administrations have grown by 87.6%. Let that sink in a minute. How many times have you heard where teachers are saying, there's not enough teachers, there's not enough help, there's too many students in my class? And with all of these people coming in over the border, there's even more. So look at all of these different types of people that are being hired in our district offices: DEI officers, Title IX officers, school resource officers, curriculum directors, information officers, IT directors, strategy directors, data analysts, superintendent, assistant superintendent, finance officers, mental health counselors, psychologists, and clerical people. There is so much data to manage. It's exploding in growth at the district level. So now I'm gonna go all the way through this, and we'll do questions at the end, okay? So just keep putting your questions in the chat or comments, because some people here probably don't agree with what I've just said about pulling your kids out of a school. I am telling you, I've talked with some people recently that they absolutely are in agreement with me that we just have to start sounding the alarm. It's time to get them out. It's past time to get them out. Here's the input on the left, and here is all of the different people that can access them. And I probably don't have all of this together. This is based on what I know and I could dig up for you. The input comes through surveys, whether they're standalone or voluntary surveys that look fun. Your kid might not even know they're taking a survey. There's daily lessons. We say in this work, every day is a survey, because all subjects have SEL integration many times. There's digital games. There's check-ins. That would be more of your pre-K, kindergartner, first grade. They do little check-ins with emojis, and a teacher or an interventionist can start a conversation. Why did you put a sad face? Why did you put a mad face? And get the conversation going. Assessments, SAT. One thing, you know, that I was told recently, actually there's a web, there's an article. If you look this up in ACT, for the ACT testing and performance, you can find where they have even developed a moral standards. They call it the MISA testing for the United Arab Emirates, where they're testing their morals based on what they've been taught through SEL programming. Folks, this is real. And if they've taught and developed a test for moral testing with that country, don't think that it can't come here. I can't even believe I'm telling y'all all that, but that's true. You can look it up yourself. Also, we have benchmark testing, which, benchmark testing is a legitimate thing. You find out what a kid knows about a subject. What's the harm in that? Well, if there's a benchmark testing on SEL competencies, maybe that would be more problematic, I would think. You can have face recognition as another input. Time measurements. How long does that kid sit there and stare at that particular lesson? And what is their face looking like as they're reading it? Where a child's location is, if they're after school or whatever, wherever they're at. Their social media and their text messages being surveilled by these surveillance programs that are in the schools. They say that they have those there looking for students that are suicidal. That's their reasoning to invade their privacy. And if their phone is synced with their computer, whoever they're texting, including parents, that could be read by your administrators. There's also your school nurse and doctor. They can get input into that database file. Teachers can put those things in on behalf of your student as well. Your mental health counselors also can put information into those folders as well. Just stop and think about that for a moment. And now on the right, look at all of these people who can access that information as well. We've got publishers, assessment companies, ed tech companies, mental health counselors can access it, so they'll know what kind of interventions to provide. Social workers as well. All the way through, you can read and see all of these things. Many of them I've already mentioned. Google is another one that has access. You think about it, they have Chromebooks. Survey hosts and data analysts, and just on and on and on. Parents, you also have access to your child's information, and I would get it. And I would want to know what has been placed in that longitudinal database on my child. So remember last month, we talked about how we're looking through the spectacle of equity. We're looking through those lenses, balancing it out. Who's going to have more time with my kid here? And how am I impacting my child and their thoughts and their understandings? And how am I representing the world stage to my child? Gone are the days of not explaining. You have got to make this time investment in your child. You see what the daughter said earlier on in the program today. So let's just look at this. How much school time? And then add all that screen time. And notice I have capitalized on the TikTok logo on the front of that globe. Folks, that TikTok thing, that one right there, if I were a parent, I would delete it and ban it from my child's phone. There's no telling what all that is taking and collecting on your child in itself. And you see the family worldview in the distance. If you're spending a lot of screen time every evening and not talking with your child, I would really recommend that you evaluate that and make adjustments. So let's do some math. Let's just really quick do some math here. This is probably one of the most important screens, in my opinion, that I've got today for you. You've got 16 hours of waking time for the average child. Now, I know when they're smaller, you don't have as many hours. So that's even more important. You've got to be intentional as a parent. Look at this, what I call the bracket time. School 7:30 to 3:30, just say average. Then you've got extracurricular activities, possibly. You may even have to have a babysitter during that time because you're working. So between 5:30 and 10 p.m., or if your child's very young, you might even have less time than that. What kind of face time do you have with your child? And how much time do you really spend talking with them about your beliefs? What are your spiritual beliefs? What are your political beliefs? What is your worldview? Whatever is important to you to instill in your child, whatever that may be, that is up for you to evaluate and decide. And when you think about, well, I've had more parents say, well, I took my kid to church. Well, 2 hours of Sunday church and 1 hour maybe Wednesday, maybe a couple of trips with a youth pastor or something, that's not to replace your investment. So in order to have that child that will stand against what's taking place in the public school system, they need to be prepared. And you need to think, Does the school and social media get more time with your child than you do? Folks, really take this to heart. Only you can guard your child and their heart, mind, their beliefs and everything. This is very important to look at. So when you're looking at all this and you consider that schools are also teaching students what media to use on top of all of this, saying that some of the probably the media that you would use as a conservative or as a Christian or if you're in another belief system, that might be called extreme right, and it's misinformation in the school system. You've got to understand that literally, I know in California and New York, they are requiring schools to teach about media literacy. And so when you think about that, when they talk about what media is not right and brings it misinformation, and they totally shut down anything that comes from a Christian worldview, a conservative worldview, or whatever worldview you subscribe to that has your own values, attitudes, behaviors, and beliefs therein. And if they're discounting that to your child, and you're thinking back here to this slide here, and they've got that much more time with your child than you, that's where we're getting this transformation along with the CASEL 5 competencies. It's coming at them in this world, and this is where we need to really wake up and stand. Remember, it's all going to go through those competencies and be tested to see as well. Plugging them in, measuring those competencies, every subject's going through them, and your child will not even know that they're being manipulated. And remember, they're measured and reported to those longitudinal databases without parental consent. All right, so now let's look real quick and check my time here. We're running out of time quickly, so let me get this really quick. All of these lessons are downloading and uploading. Okay, so these kids are downloading these lessons into their laptops. They are putting the answers in. Those answers are getting taken into a system similar to, like, this is just one of the companies, Common Education Data Standards. And then Common Education Data Standards has subscribed to Project Unicorn, which is a company that has a software program that helps their company information speak to other companies. So it opens up every single data silo in order for all of the information to flow into a global level so it can be accessed by whoever they subscribe to. All of it's uploaded into these systems. They're looking for those adverse childhood experiences as well. They're also looking for things they can sell. Data is sold for many, many reasons. So then we have right here, if you go to ceds.ed.gov and you look at all of these drop down files, I highly suggest that you look into those. Okay? All right. So now, remember, all of this is very personal, harvested, possibly sold, but what if it's even stolen? This is happening. I thought, you know what, I'll just Google lawsuits against EdTech for data breach. I got over 9 million hits. Folks, look into this, because like I know I was looking at Pearson and Savvis Learning, they're one and the same. I was looking at their company and they've had some major payouts. Pearson has had major payouts in this area. And you really need to understand that just because these companies say that they're protecting your information on your child, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are. Project Unicorn is also sponsored by Bill Gates and the Dell Foundation, the Gates Foundation and the Dell Foundation. So that's also, will just give you a flavoring of the integrity of this company. And that's something that you need to consider for yourself. Look into it for yourself, understand what they're doing. It's just, they're helping other computers talk to one another. Here's some of the companies that they represent as well, the certified products, all of these upload to them. And then they have even a rubric to transform how the data is handled. If you're at a level 4 on their rubric, it means that the second your kid hits enter, they have it in a global network, right? Because remember, we're going to be global citizens, right? This is where they're trying to take us. All right, I'm going to use one of the slides from last week, but I've updated the family value system. I'm going to go through this really fast. Let's say that the family value system, none really has been established verbally in the home, but they might identify as Christian, but no regular study of scripture or training, no real understanding of beliefs. And this really represents the average student today. The culture, again, it's America. We're autonomous. We're self-governed. It's a free country. Okay, that's what we've always been taught. The subject here again is transgenderism. Again, once again, I keep showing you this chart. We're going through the competencies. So now, these on the outside are those same competencies you just saw on that. Now let's look at transgenderism data and how it might travel. Let's say they had an identity lesson, like I showed last week, one of those lessons I showed, or last month. So let's say that the student chooses another gender and they're celebrated over it. And then let's say you go down here into the group work, because remember at the third competency level, social awareness, we're looking with other peers at our lesson work and we're using real live examples, right? So we're looking at, you know, what's happening there. Remember the guy last month told them to affirm each other in that. So you've got the social affirmation. We're building relationship skills. That's the application there is relationship skills. And then fifth, they have the responsible decision-making. That's full transformation, which takes place possibly with counselor intervention. And then we would have gender support planning. And we have an all-out transformation outcome. And possibly a school-based healthcare clinic referral. This is how it can happen. And a lot of people are like, oh gosh, you've got to be kidding me, Marcia. Aren't you like a conspiracy theorist here? No, we know these things are happening. We're hearing of people that have a divorce situation and where a mom or a dad is taking a kid down these roads into transgenderism. This is happening. Children are being removed from homes in some states because of this kind of work. And I'm going to show you a video to help you understand more about that in just a second. Here's one more point I want to make, and we're going to go over this company next month, Edgenuity. Here's their privacy policy, and I have a concern with it. I want you to think about how this is interpreted. It says, we may share information with law enforcement or other third parties when compelled to do so by court order or other legal process to comply with statutes or regulations, to enforce our terms of use, or if we believe in good faith that the disclosure is necessary to protect the rights, property, or personal safety of our users. Okay, we have minors in schools and they don't really have full rights like a regular citizen. They are a minor that is led by their parents. They are the parents' children. And those parents have legal rights that I know you are all well versed in. But when you look at this word here, rights, and you look at it based in the school system, I want you to understand what some of these people think about rights. They think that children have sexual rights. They think that they have rights to manage their own body and make their own choice for their sexual gender identity. Folks, this is a word here that could be used to stretch this in a way that is not conducive to your worldview. So you need to understand these privacy policies have a lot to consider. All right, so think about last month when I showed you this gentleman here, how he had taught the kids how to come out as gay in the one video, and also I talked to you about how he had another video about sexual trauma and also about sexual safety, which his information was deadly. But think about a student that's going through a lesson with someone that looks like this man, that's not in their normal sphere of influence in their life. Think about all of the different data that could be harvested here on the right. The camera observations, the neuro measurements that could come from it, peer group work, what responses of different students could come out, how they would be surveyed, what digital assignments they would have, if they don't want to affirm this, all of these different things. How would they react to things on digital games, social media, observation software? What are they saying to their friends about this? Or are they passing a note in class about this to another student? I know of a situation where that was happening and the student got suspended from school simply because she said, "I am tired of this crap." That's what she said to another student and got suspended. Folks, this is real. And I talk with parents, and I talk with people that other people that talk with these parents. And so understand this is all present in the school, and you need to know. Watch
I am
this.
Sage's mother, better known as Nana. I adopted Sage after my son died when she was still a baby. She's been through 6 foster homes by then, but we loved her, and she blossomed into a joyful, lively girl who made music and art. Puberty began and COVID hit, and she was treated for depression and anxiety, at times very severe. Her teachers shared any concerns with me so her treatment could be adapted. The transparency ended in August of 2021 when Sage started high school. She started a public high school, and she told me that all the girls there were bi, trans, lesbian, emo, and she wanted to wear boys' clothes and be emo. Because I saw it as just a phase, it was fine with me. But at school, she told them something different. She was now a boy named Brooke Draco with male pronouns. Sage asked the school not to tell me, and they did not tell me, even though I informed them of her mental health history and medication. If I had known, this would be a much different story. She was terribly bullied. No one told me, but boys followed her, touched her, threatened violence and rape. Something happened in the boys' bathroom, but for 2 days, the school told me nothing. They kept meeting with Sage alone, and she became so distraught, they called me to pick her up. That evening, I found a hall pass labeled Draco, and Sage told me she was identifying as a boy, and that her counselor said she could use the boys' bathroom. She'd been jacked up against the wall by a group of boys. She was crying, terrified. I said, "Just stay home, we'll figure it out." That was my last conversation with Sage for 5 months. The night she ran, she thought to a young friend she'd met online. She left a note saying she was scared of what would happen if she stayed. The sheriff, FBI, search dogs were called in. I dropped to my knees in prayer. 9 days later, the FBI found her in Baltimore. My baby had been lured online, sex trafficked by DC, then Maryland. She was locked in a room, drugged, gang raped, and brutalized by countless men. It was night. The FBI told us to pick her up in Maryland the next morning. We packed our cars with blankets and stuffed animals and arrived by 8 a.m. But we were told we couldn't see her and were summoned before Judge Robert Kershaw late that afternoon. They didn't even tell Sage that we came for her. We finally entered the courtroom, and Sage appears on a huge Zoom screen from a prison cell. She looks tiny and broken, and I cry out, "I love you, Sage." Sage responds, "I love you too, Nana." But attorney Anissa Khan rebukes us. She is a he, and his name is Draco, not Sage. We were floored. What? Khan accuses us of emotional and physical abuse, that we are misgendering her. Even though we just learned she claims to be trans and we're willing to use any name and pronouns to bring her home. My husband was so tearful he kept forgetting the new pronouns, so the judge had the bailiff remove him from the courtroom. I was pleading for my child to be returned and treated for her unspeakable trauma. Judge Kershaw told me if I used the word trauma again, he would throw me out too. For over 2 months, he withheld custody. He housed Sage in a male quarters of a children's home. Sage told me she was the only girl and repeatedly assaulted. She was given street drugs by the other kids, and Khan told her she didn't care. She just wanted to win the case and all the way to Supreme Court if necessary. Khan tried to prove abuse, but we were eventually cleared by both states of all charges. Sage later told me Khan had told her to lie, that we hit her. Khan even had Sage's school counselors testify against us, though they barely knew Sage, and they didn't know us at all. Khan told my precious child I didn't want her anymore. I found out Sage never received any of the letters I sent her. Sage ran from the children's home and disappeared for months. They told me she might already be gone forever, but I couldn't give up, and I finally found a tip on her social media that led the marshals to her in Texas. She had been drugged, raped, beaten, and exploited. This time I was able to be with her for the traumatic rape exam and to bring her home. Back in Virginia, she entered the mental health facility that Judge Kershaw had ordered, as it would affirm her as a male. The therapist began pressuring her to have her healthy breasts removed. Sage was too scared to protest, but she asked me to secretly buy her girls' clothes because she wanted to be a girl, but keep them in the car. It took a kind lawyer, Josh Hetzler, to secure her discharge. After almost a year, Sage was finally home, safe, alive. Sage is receiving professional trauma care. The first trafficker has already been convicted. Sage has nightmares, panic attacks, rape-related medical issues, but there's hope. I told her she's not broken, she's just scarred. And part of that hope is that in courageously sharing her story, others will be saved. Sage said she doesn't know who she was back then. She wasn't a boy. She just wanted to have friends. But her school, the judge, the attorney, and the doctor were all blinded by their ideology. The consequences for Sage were unspeakable. Please don't let ideology harm another child. Let parents do our jobs. We know our children best, and we love them 1,000,000 times more. Thank you. I am Sage's.
Okay, so I think you see where data can lead our children. I cannot even begin to imagine what this child has been through and what this family has been through. But you heard about the school counselors that barely even knew her. They testified as well. This ideology is trying to take a stronghold. It is taking a stronghold. And you need resources for this. And, I can't say that I have exactly all of the forms that I would like to be able to produce in order to help parents to protect their children, because I know some people just don't even see a way out of getting their kids out of these schools, how it would change their lifestyle so much. But folks, I'm here to tell you, consider every single school has different laws, and every single school has different, every state has different laws, and every school has different processes. You just have to dig and find out for yourself what's taking place in your school system. How is it working? Folks, I've spent 3 years developing this book. I sell it for $5. I don't make money on this book. It's 3 years of my life, and it covers 17 plus worldview exits. You can go online and you can get this. We talk about all kinds of different information here. And I would love for you to be able to get it at that very deep discount. Theparentnavigator.net, that's where you can find it to download it. It's only electronic, so that's how you would purchase it, and you simply just use it on your computer because it has live links in it. And with that, I just want to let you know I have that information. Be on the lookout on our website, because we do have a couple of other things that we have a parental notification document that you can download from the Child Parent Rights Campaign, which is phenomenal. They have great resources too. So all of that said, I know we're getting close to an hour. This was a lot, and it's heavy. This is so heavy. And I can't thank you all enough for being with us and hanging through this during this time. But folks, share this video with people. Share this and help people to understand what's at stake. Because I don't know about you, but when you take this very strategic way of getting data into these systems against your children, that's just not all right. That is absolutely not all right. So anyway, at that, I will leave it with you. Our next session is going to be on April 1st. And Diane, I noticed we have a few questions here.
Yeah, Marcia, we have quite a few questions. I think the most frequently asked question is about the several videos that you presented today and the presentation. Might those be available on your website for people to look at after this recorded
Yes, they
webinar?
will. This whole seminar will be uploaded. But if you're wanting to have them done separately, just the videos themselves, you can clip them right out of this seminar. That's fine. Just clip them yourself and you can use them that way. I do have the girl at the very front. I have once this is uploaded, you'll be able to see the link where you can take that and use it as well. She's also, I found it on Twitter and I was just floored when I saw it. So, but yeah, all of these, you can just look up Sage's Law and that YouTube video will come up. And one of my very close friends, her law firm, is representing that family. So this is very real, people. This is very real.
Marcia, there was an acknowledgement about the Trevor Project being a totally corrupt group to watch
Mhm.
out for. They
Yes.
have chat rooms that take advantage of children's vulnerability. So be on the lookout for that. Many comments about how public schools are a bad idea and we need to start getting the kids out. Here's one. Do you agree that all of the inputs of your input list will be analyzed by a rubric of SEL-based criteria such that results will be able to be expressed as compliance with, acceptance of, et cetera, and implementation of SEL?
You never can say 100%, but I would say most of it, yes.
And then
If you look on that ceds.ed.gov, that you'll have that link when this uploads. You'll be able to get all of that. Because that's the thing about these seminars. You can always go back to them and look at all the links that I have there. And if there's something you can't find, just feel free to email me, parentsonthelevel@gmail.com. But all of this, when you look at the longitudinal database files and you go into that particular website, yeah, they are definitely measuring the competencies. Absolutely, they are.
We have someone here who says, I work for public schools for 26 years. You're absolutely correct regarding all the new gender identity training we go through. Children as young as 4 to 5 years old are going as non-binary and changing their names to gender neutral. My girls are currently in 5th grade and have friends that have identified this way. Their parents are so proud of them for, quote, coming out. I feel a lot of the children are looking for the approval from their parents.
Yeah.
I cannot afford to pull my girls, but they understand God made them as girls. And some of their friends are not correct.
I want to personally thank you as a public school employee for coming out and saying that because I have so many that will come privately and say something, but for you to say that on this platform and affirm everything I've just spoke about, thank you. Here's another comment that I will make about the way that they are gendering children. If a child has an appropriate response as a young child would, that a lot of them think of it as just repugnant. They don't even want to talk about it. They'll say, oh, well, you're questioning. That's what it is. Or you're asexual. You don't have a sexual desire. And that way they can make them part of the community. They want all kids to be a part of the community. So you're exactly right. Thank you for your comments. And people there, you've heard it from a public school employee herself. All right.
One last comment. Parentsonthelevel.org. Is it org or .com?
It's .com. I am so sorry. It's .com. I should have corrected that. That is .com, people. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Okay, that's it, Marcia.
All right. Again, we'll see you. It's on April Fool's Day, no fooling. But that's when our next session is. I look forward to it. Remember, it's going to be about Imagine Learning and Edgenuity. So I'll get that graphic corrected and we'll get that advertised really soon. But you will be very interested. And one of the things that really sticks out to me is that, and look to see if it's in your alternative schools. Find out if that's in your alternative schools, Edgenuity. I find it just very interesting that that is the common denominator. So we will look at that. I've got a lot of information to share, and I hope to see you then. Please be sure to share this video and like it on the YouTube channel. Thanks again.